No one could have imagined that amid the daily routine of filming, constant moving, and unexpected meetings, a strange envelope would appear, capable of bringing confusion even into the life of such a balanced person as everyone considered Keanu. Usually, he was used to the fact that his assistants sorted his mail for him, cutting off endless letters from fans and admirers sending requests, confessions, or offers for joint projects. But on that day, an envelope with a red seal fell into his hands directly, without prior verification, and from that moment on, everything went according to an unpredictable scenario. The owner of a calm smile and a quiet disposition, Keanu rarely lost his composure, but the reaction to this letter made those around him wary. He turned pale, as if he had seen a ghost. Is it possible that an ordinary piece of paper could cause such a deep shock? And how did it turn out that the fateful text came to him right before one of the most terrible tragedies in his life? That day, the film crew of the movie in which Reeves participated was already finishing the production cycle. Keanu felt exhausted, too many intense scenes, too little sleep and constant flights between cities. But deep down, he was happy with the work, because according to him, the more difficult the roles, the more meaning and opportunity for self-knowledge. Few people knew that the actor's internal tension was connected not only with the filming process, but also with anxious thoughts about the past. He recalled recent losses, failures in his personal life, the death of close friends, and could not get rid of the feeling that something even more painful could await him in the future. Perhaps this instinct led him to a sharp realization of the importance of all the signals coming from the outside. However, when one of the assistants quietly handed Keanu an unsealed envelope, decorated only with a large red seal, during intermission, no one noticed anything special about it. The assistant shrugged. They brought it to the reception area in your name, said that this does not apply to the mail, asked that it be delivered only to you personally. Reeves nodded, took the envelope, and went to his trailer, intending to look at the contents a little later. But having already placed it on the table, he suddenly felt a strange internal tremor that did not allow him to calmly continue the shooting day. A viscous feeling of uncertainty made him drop everything and open the envelope immediately. Some of the crew noticed that he returned from the trailer with a hunted expression on his face. When asked if everything was okay, Keanu barely audibly replied that he needed a short break and asked to stay without him for a while. No one dared to pester them with questions. Reeves's position and authority on the set were such that everyone was accustomed to trusting his decisions. It was assumed that if he said, "Pause," then there really was a good reason. But in the quiet of the hallway, as the actor walked past the set, one of the lighting technicians saw him lean against the wall to keep from falling. Apparently, what he read in the letter hit harder than any sudden news in many years. People whispered. Was the message so personal that even the stoic Keanu could not hide his shock? He was unable to continue filming that day. The director, seeing Reeves's condition, announced the end of the shift, citing the exhaustion of the daily budget. But everyone understood that the real reason was that the actor was not in shape. In the evening, Keanu, who rarely uses the luxury of personal security or cars, this time asked the driver to take him home. On the way, he literally could not let go of the envelope, opening it, then folding it, as if rereading something over and over again. The driver recalled that he did not hear a word from the passenger. He was completely immersed in his thoughts. When they stopped at the actor's house, Keanu asked not to accompany him and disappeared inside, closing the massive door. After that, for several days, it was as if he disappeared into thin air. He did not appear in public, did not answer calls even from friends, and did not go to shops. The paparazzi, accustomed to following his movements, noted that he usually goes to the nearest coffee shop or rides his favorite motorcycle, but now it was as if he had sunk into oblivion. The news reached the ears of journalists who began to theorize from health issues to a new secret love, but no one knew about the letter. Only one person familiar with Keanu's circle of friends let it slip to a reporter. It seems like he got some kind of warning or even a threat, and he's very worried about it. I don't know the full details, but they say it may be about some events from the past. The words warning and threat, combined with the mysterious letter, stirred the imagination of people familiar with Reeves's biography. After all, he had already faced persecution, mentally unstable fans, and experienced terrible losses of loved ones. Few could imagine what else could shock him so much. Perhaps something directly related to the impending tragedy, which no one knew about at the time. Time itself soon reminded us of the reality of the impending catastrophe. Literally a week after Keanu's disappearance, a misfortune happened in his circle. A tragic incident took the life of a person whom the actor considered a kindred spirit. Of course, the details were not disclosed in the public space, because Keanu himself is still extremely reserved and does not like to talk about his personal sorrows. But confidential sources noted that the death was unexpected, and immediately after the news, the actor got in touch and looked completely broken. It seemed that this was already the last straw for his already exhausted soul. Aversion arose. Did the mysterious letter somehow foreshadow this tragedy? Did it warn him of the coming grief? Or, on the contrary, was it a message from the person whose death he mourned? These questions only fueled the public's curiosity, but no one gave an answer. Several of Reeves' closest acquaintances remained silent, citing his request. However, one of the employees of the studio where Keanu continued to work on the project said that after the tragedy, the actor picked up the same envelope again. This happened right in the dressing room, before the start of the shooting day. And then, in the presence of this employee, he seemed to ask into the void, "Why now?" The employee pretended not to hear, although inside he was tormented by guesses. The actor folded the letter and said, "Nothing can be changed, but maybe I needed this to understand." So it remained unknown what exactly to understand and what was written there. However, over time, some fragments did come to light. This was facilitated by an old friend of the Reeves family, who wished to remain anonymous, who inadvertently let it slip to a journalist friend that the contents of the letter were directly related to the actor's past trauma, the loss of loved ones, and the need to prepare for a possible repetition of pain. Allegedly, the letter was written in a woman's handwriting, without a signature or dates, and included the phrase, "Don't mourn what you can't hold, rather cherish what is near." It sounds like a quote from some old parable, but perhaps these were personal words addressed to Keanu. There were rumors that the envelope only had a red wax seal with initials that no one has yet been able to decipher. Who wrote these mysterious lines? Was it some anonymous friend who warned of impending misfortune? Or was there something more mystical behind it? Be that as it may, soon after the tragedy that befell the actor, he suddenly decided to take a long break from work, despite the fact that filming was almost at the finish line. The producers rushed to assure the media that everything was going according to plan, and Keanu was simply taking a short vacation. But behind the scenes, they reported that he intended to take a trip, perhaps even a pilgrimage. They said that the actor went to the land that was associated with his old memories, or where the childhood of the person he lost passed. No one knew exactly where he was heading, because Reeves does not use the services of a whole team of bodyguards and can safely travel away from the cameras. Evil tongues joked that he was hiding from a threat, but most agreed that, most likely, he went in search of answers left in this strange letter. Later, when the actor returned, his face reflected a mixture of grief and inner enlightenment. He refused to be interviewed and did not give a single comment on the topic of the break. Those who communicated with him during this period recalled that he became even more withdrawn, but at the same time, his gentleness and participation in the fates of others only increased. For example, there is a story. In the first days after his return, Keanu went to a charity center where he helped children with serious illnesses and spent several hours there, without coordinating this with either managers or the press. He quietly communicated with the foundation's wards, not seeing curiosity about his fame in their eyes, but feeling only pain and hope. The foundation's employees said that they would remember that day forever, because the actor carried within himself a special, deep sadness melted into compassion. He clearly understood that nothing in the world lasts forever and nothing guarantees us tomorrow. This means that if there is an opportunity to do good now, you should do it without delay. But the question of what was in the letter continued to torment many. Knowing Keanu's commitment to personal privacy, one can guess he will never reveal the details himself. However, some clues gave a hint that the key moment was the phrase warning him about the need to be there before it's too late. Some interpreted this as if someone knew about the imminent death of a person dear to Keanu and tried to make him pay attention before the irreparable happened. Someone assured that the letter included specific dates, as if prophesying trouble. However, this may be an exaggeration of the tabloids, who love to mystify the tragedies of stars. Another theory, the message was written by the victim of the tragedy herself, aware of her condition and risking losing her life at any moment, but wanting Keanu to know about it without further ado. A dubious version, because who would send a warning in such a form? And yet, some fans are sure that this is how it was. They point to a seal with initials that may belong to this person. In the end, the truth was lost in gossip, and the actor himself preferred to take this burden upon himself. Despite all the mystery, some conclusions are obvious. Keanu, a man who has experienced a lot of pain but managed to maintain an open mind, treats the letter as a signal from above, or at least as an important message. Since then, his behavior and communication with friends have noticeably changed. Thus, many noted that he began to arrange meetings with old friends more often, call old acquaintances, show attention to relatives whom he had hardly seen for years. As if he realized that time may not be enough, and life is sometimes unfairly short. In addition, he began to be more active in charity, allocating sums on anonymous terms. Journalists tried to see in this an attempt to escape reality, but those who knew Reeves believed that he was simply in a hurry to share kindness, feeling the power of the brevity of existence. The fact about the mysterious letter received before the tragedy also affected his attitude to film work. People from the industry noticed that, upon returning to the project, Keanu asked for some changes in his character, making him deeper and more complex. Perhaps he decided to express through art the feelings that tormented him after personal losses. The director accepted these edits, and the scenes where the hero lives through dramatic moments became imbued with the actor's own grief. It turned out so heartfelt that some members of the film crew admitted, "We saw Keanu playing not a role, but his own pain." And who will now say that the letter did not become a turning point that changed his approach to creativity? All these events have once again proven how enigmatic and multifaceted Keanu remains. On the one hand, he is ready to cry and remember past grievances. On the other hand, his experience gives him the strength to continue living and helping others. He avoided publicly inflating the tragedy and did not explain why the letter affected him so much. But the picture emerged by itself. The actor's inner voice, his rare outbursts of despair and powerful will to compassion indicate that at the moment when he read the anonymous lines, something in his soul turned over. Perhaps he felt that he still had a chance, albeit tiny, to prevent the worst. And then when trouble did happen, he took the blame, believing that he had not managed to do everything necessary. Many fans wonder, if he had disclosed the contents of the letter, would anyone have been able to help? Or was it a fate that could not be escaped? Keanu himself probably does not believe in shifting responsibility to others. His life has always been about personal decisions. He prefers to take the blows alone and not complain. But looking at his subsequent behavior, one can say that now he tries even harder to cherish each day. He has repeatedly repeated in interviews that people underestimate the value of simple moments. A friendly hug, a sincere conversation, a moment of laughter. But sometimes all this can disappear overnight, leaving no chance for correction. As a result, the story of the mysterious letter remains unfinished. We only know that Keanu received it immediately before the terrible tragedy, and the content of the message was clearly intended to warn or push him to some important step. That's where the facts end, and only guesses are used. The letter has become a symbol of a tragic and almost mystical thread between the actor's past and present, looping his losses and pain in another, painful turn. Perhaps one day he will decide to lift the curtain of secrecy, but certainly not out of a thirst for sensation, but only if he considers it necessary to understand the essence of things. For now, we can only admire his resilience, empathize with his grief, and draw an example of how, even in the most heartbreaking situations, he retains the ability to live for others, helping those who also found themselves on the brink of the abyss. Now that the story is drawing to a close, we can say for sure that the letter was not just gossip. It was real, it shook Keanu to the core, and although it did not prevent the tragedy, it may have helped him rethink many aspects of his life. Sometimes we all need such a wake-up call, although we would not like it to be associated with pain and loss. But it is always important to see the essence. We are too used to thinking that tomorrow will be like today, and we do not think that we can lose someone close or we ourselves may not have time to say the right words. This is the idea that the quiet, but in its own way powerful example of Keanu Reeves tried to convey to us, still keeping that envelope and apparently mentally asking himself, could I have really changed anything? If this story touched you, if you felt the depth of the tragedy and mystery surrounding the letter, support this video with a like. Subscribe to the channel so as not to miss other materials about destinies that turn our understanding of life upside down, and be sure to share your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe that one letter can change the course of events? How do you feel about the fact that sometimes warnings come too late? Write, because each such story helps us not to brush off what seems absurd or mystical, but to think about the value of each day spent with those who are truly dear to us. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.